Welcome to this explainer. While looking into the modern insurance industry recently, I noticed one undeniable trend popping up in the data over and over again. There is a massive, and I mean massive, growing demand for Guidewire skills. Insurance companies all over the globe rely on it, and mastering this platform, well, it looks like an absolute game changer for your career. But of course, before you can master it, you really need to understand it.
So if you're wanting to build a lucrative career in insurance tech, there's one fundamental concept that consistently trips up beginners. Honestly, using two very distinct development approaches interchangeably can lead to some major headaches. We're talking poor design, bloated costs, and seriously sluggish systems. So today, let's untangle this topic together so you can make the right technical choices from day one.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First up, an introduction to Guidewire. Then, configuration versus customization. Next, the key differences, followed by when to use which. And finally, we'll cover the actual practical steps to learn Guidewire.
Let's start with Section 1, Introduction to Guidewire.
So, what actually is it? Well, I found out that at its core, Guidewire operates as this massive, all-in-one suite. It essentially helps these giant insurance companies manage their policies, process claims, and handle all the billing. But the true power of Guidewire, the thing that makes it so popular, is that last point. It is highly flexible. It literally allows insurers to bend and mold the software to fit their highly specific business needs. But here's the catch. Because it is so incredibly flexible, the exact way a company goes about making those changes matters a whole lot. Which brings us to Section 2, configuration versus customization. Let's look at the simpler approach first, which is configuration. Guidewire configuration basically means making changes using the tools and options that are already provided by the platform. You aren't going in and altering the core system code at all. Instead, you're just adjusting settings within the allowed boundaries, mostly using the Guidewire Studio environment. It's safe and contained. On the flip side, we have Guidewire customization, and this is a much more advanced route. Customization involves actually writing brand new code to implement completely new features that just aren't available through standard options. You are building from scratch here, typically using Gosu, which, by the way, is a programming language specifically designed for Guidewire, alongside Java to integrate external systems. And this brilliantly illustrates the dynamic between the two. Imagine for a second that you just bought a brand new car. Configuration, that's like adjusting your seats, changing the radio station, maybe throwing in some nice floor mats. It's personalizing the car using its built-in options. Customization, however, is like popping open the hood, grabbing your tools, and completely rebuilding the engine. Sure, it gives you absolute, incredible control, but man, it heavily increases the complexity of what you're doing. Because you aren't rebuilding the engine, configuration comes with some massive advantages. It inherently follows Guidewire's recommended practices, which naturally makes it far safer and way easier to maintain. Crucially, when Guidewire releases an update, configured systems update super easily because that underlying core code is entirely untouched. For anyone just starting out and learning the platform, this is absolutely the ideal starting point. Now that we have those basic definitions down, let's put them head to head. Section 3, the key differences. Now, what's really interesting when you view these trade-offs side by side is that the developer's dilemma becomes crystal clear. Think about flexibility for a second. Customization offers very high flexibility, but you have to look at what it costs you. The complexity jumps to high, the coding required becomes extensive, your overall risk level shoots way up, and future upgrades become highly difficult. A good developer really knows how to balance this matrix effectively. Knowing those trade-offs, how do you actually decide which path to take on a project? That takes us to Section 4, when to use which. The sources are very clear on this one. If a business requirement can be fulfilled using existing tools, configuration should absolutely always be your preferred choice. For example, if you just need to modify a basic screen layout or maybe add a simple validation rule to a form, configuration is going to be faster, safer, and far more cost-effective for everyone involved. However, sometimes you just need more power. If the requirement involves some highly complex logic or you need to integrate a unique third-party payment gateway, customization becomes totally necessary. But it comes with a strong warning attached. Rely on it too heavily and you create massive technical debt. And that technical debt makes future changes incredibly expensive and painful to manage. Honestly, if you take away just one single thing from this explainer, let it be this golden rule. Use configuration first and only move to customization if there's no other option. Sticking to this philosophy is literally the only way to ensure the system remains stable and manageable over time.
So how do you actually get started learning all of this? Section 5. Steps to learn Guidewire.
Let's see how this builds into a really clear learning roadmap. Step 1 actually isn't about code at all. You first need a solid grasp of insurance basics, things like how underwriting, policies, and claims work in the real world. Once you have that foundation, step 2 is learning Guidewire fundamentals. You'll study the architecture and the basic workflows. Finally, step 3 is crucial. You have to get hands-on practice with sample projects to build those real-world skills.
When you are executing a configuration task, you want to follow a strict workflow. First, you must understand the business requirement with total clarity. Next, open up Guidewire Studio and identify the exact components you need to tweak, maybe something like a page configuration format or PCF file for a user interface change. Then, test thoroughly using the built-in tools. And lastly, always document your changes for the rest of your team. Now, contrast that with the customization workflow. It's kind of funny, but your very first step is actually to confirm that configuration cannot solve the problem. Once you've confirmed that, you have to design your solution carefully to avoid creating any performance issues. Then you write clean, modular code using Gosu or Java. And finally, you perform rigorous testing to ensure you haven't accidentally broken any existing system functionalities. As you practice, you need to be hyper-aware of some common beginner mistakes. Overusing customization is by far the biggest pitfall. Also, jumping right in without truly understanding the requirements guarantees you'll waste time. Ignoring Guidewire's established best practices, that will definitely result in an unstable system. And skipping testing, well, that's a critical error that will absolutely come back to haunt you. So, if you avoid all those mistakes and really put in the time to master both approaches, where is it going to take you? What does the future actually hold for Guidewire professionals out there? The research shows the future is incredibly bright for this ecosystem. The platform is pushing heavily into cloud advancements, they are integrating artificial intelligence, and expanding into advanced analytics. As the massive global insurance industry continues adopting these digital solutions, the demand for highly skilled Guidewire professionals is only expected to grow and grow. And that brings us to the end of our explainer. The demand is definitely out there waiting for you. So as you go to open Guidewire Studio for the very first time, ask yourself this: will you start by safely adjusting the car seats, or are you ready to roll up your sleeves and completely rebuild the engine? Thanks so much for joining me, and good